Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with another anabolic Q&A. This is where I answer all your questions about training, nutrition, and responsible, safer use performance enhancement, all while improving your results while keeping you safe from the stupid shit that you bros like to do. On today's episode, I have some great questions lined up from my School Anabolic Bodybuilding members community. Here are just a few. Why would NPP cause me to get Gyno and Tren does not, even though they're both 19 nors? Is it possible to build muscle in a caloric deficit if your stack is set up properly? After 40, with access to no machines and only free weights, how would you train to maximize hypertrophy without getting injured? On days you can't meal prep, what are the best options for food to stay on track? And we'll get into those questions and a bunch more in just 1 second. All right, bros, before we get started on this video, just a couple things. I want to remind you guys to please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I get a lot of people watching and not that many people subscribing. I think I had something like 30,000 new people watch my channel last month and only 1,000 new subscribers. So it's only a fraction, like 1 or 2%. If you want to contribute and help me out, you like my content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, I have set up a secondary channel called Big Paul Clips for you motherfuckers that are ADHD like me and can't stay focused on anything for more than 5 or 10 minutes. I have short clips, single question answers over there on that channel. Go subscribe over there as well. A lot going on. I'm back in the gym now, training. I've been out for I don't know, 6 months, 7 months, and doctor finally cleared me, so things are back in place, and I'm actually doing a baby cycle. I've been on TRT for the last, 8 months, something like that, and running just a little bit of gear now, like 300 tests, 150 Primo, and seeing how things go, and then slowly easing myself back into the gym. That's kind of where I'm at right now. This video is not about me. We're gonna talk about the Q&As, but I get a lot of people asking me what's going on, so I just want to let you guys know. And I have no idea if I'm going to compete next year yet or not. I'm thinking about it, not 100% sure. Right now, I just need to get recovered from this surgery where I had my bicep tendon labrum and supraspinatus repaired. I'm probably lifting about 50 to 60% of my pre-surgery weight, so I need to work my way back up and put some size back on. I'll make an evaluation probably in March or April after the Arnold and slowly ramping up my gear and stuff. And maybe I'll document the process. People have asked me to document it. I just don't know how exciting it is right now with me doing half the weight I was doing before and not being in the best shape that I've been. Maybe it'd be fun to watch, but I may or may not start documenting that process as I work my way back into shape, but I'm just trying to get myself back into a routine and actually live like a bodybuilder again, which I haven't for like the last 6 to 8 months. All right, let's dig into some of these questions. The first question I got here is from Adam A. Adam is a member of the School Anabolic Bodybuilding members community. If you want to get your questions asked on the Q&A, guaranteed, go over and join the community. Link is in the video description below. Adam asks, hey, Big Paul, is there a specific testosterone dose that you recommend to pair with another compound while in a caloric deficit that still allows for muscle growth? And depending on the stack, is significant growth in a caloric deficit realistically possible? Well, the short answer is it depends. I know that's ambiguous, but it really does depend. I have seen guys grow while in a caloric deficit. I've done it myself, but there needs to be a perfect set of circumstances for that to happen. What I will say is the harder the caloric deficit is, the less likely that's going to happen. And when we're on contest prep with bodybuilders, most of the time, man, I just don't want them to lose muscle. That's the goal. We want to lose fat. We don't want to lose muscle. I would say this. Look, this is my advice generally to people. If you have a significant amount of fat to lose, just go all in on that and don't try to half-ass it and try to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. It's like trying to find the pink unicorn in the forest, the magic forest. It's a mythical creature that maybe is out there, but almost nobody ever catches it. It is possible to do, but I would say, look, if your body fat is at the point where you need to cut, just get the body fat off as quickly as possible, and then you can shift back into a phase where you can actually gain muscle. I think that is the more efficient way to do it. I see a lot of people wasting their time with mini cuts and doing small deficits and things like that. Now, with that said, look, if you just need to clean up a little bit, like let's say you're 10, 12%, that's probably where I'm at right now. I would say my body fat's probably in the 12 to 13% range if I were to guess. Maybe a little higher. I don't know. And I want to get down to 8 to maybe set myself up. Sure, you can do a moderate deficit, maybe a 500 calorie a day net negative energy balance, just get some of that fat off, clean things up, and get back into it. Now, as far as compounds go, there is one tried and true compound that has been demonstrated over and over again to make it possible to grow muscle while in a caloric deficit, and it is the devil's nectar, that beast known as Trenbolone. Tren, Tren is a unique animal. It is really the only compound I've seen where if you run it high enough and hard enough that it defies all laws of nature and physics. It is a concoction made in Hades. It comes straight from the devil himself. You might get a divorce. You might end up having an affinity for ladyboys. There's all sorts of problems that could possibly happen if you start running a lot of Tren. But damn, it does work. I will say that, and I'm not telling you to go out and take Tren, but that is the one compound where you can defy all the rules that apply to everything and get yourself in shape. And that's why it's so tempting to use. Believe me, I think constantly about, do I just want to sprinkle a little Tren in here? Even though I've had bad experiences with Tren in the past, my God, insomnia, night sweats. I get anxiety on it, but God damn, it fucking works. My dick might not work, but Tren works. Tren is the devil's nectar. Tren can make that possible. But I would say otherwise, probably not. Just on a fat loss phase, focus on losing fat and then get ready for your muscle gain phase and get yourself in a better place. Tren is always the answer. Next question here is from James G. from the School Anabolic Bodybuilding Members Community. James asked, I'm 41 years old and I have access to barbells, racks, and dumbbells, no machines. How can I train for hypertrophy and size while minimizing risk of injuries? Squats, bench press, deadlifts seem like staples, along with many supplemental free weight movements. As I've gotten older, I've noticed more pulls and strains. Most bodybuilders rely heavily on machines. Any tips or advice? I would go get a gym membership. Work out at a gym that has good machines. All kidding aside, I was confined to that situation myself during COVID. I have a home gym, but I got rid of it. But I had a home gym, I guess I should say, well stocked with rogue equipment. I had barbells, dumbbells, squat rack, deadlift platform, bench. And what I would say is just lift reasonably, lift responsibly. You can lift free weights and keep the risk profile lower. What I would say is really focus on form, really focus on maximizing mechanical tension. What I would say is slow your rep speed down. what I would say is try to get the most out of the least with these things. Don't always worry about how much weight you're putting on the bar. Not to say that progression isn't important, but I think it becomes less important as we get older. I would maybe increase rep range so you're not at risk of tears and putting heavy load on joints. I would look at, probably somewhere in the 10 to 12 rep range. That seems to be where I like to live at this point for most of my compound exercises. I wouldn't go any lower than 8 reps on compound exercises, but 10 to 12 reps would be the safer range to live in. When it comes to bench presses, I don't have any data on it, but I rarely see people tearing pecs on incline presses. It seems to be more on flat benches. If you do barbell incline presses, what I would do is bring the bar only down about 2 inches from your chest, maybe 3 inches. I used to make fun of dudes that did that shit and call them pussies, but now I understand why, because that's how you tear pecs, going that full range of motion. I would limit the range of motion. And if you have access to dumbbells, I probably would opt for dumbbell presses over barbell bench presses, that locked fixed plane of motion where you can't pull to the midline. Seems to increase risk of tears. Dumbbells you can freely turn and get yourself that more neutral grip on a dumbbell seems to, just anecdotally, and once again, no science on it. I'm sure some exercise physiologist will tell me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but just from what I have seen, lowers risk of injury. It will tell you those barbell bench presses, flat bench presses. I have had 4 clients now. I'm at 4. One of them a former client, I guess I should say, who have had pec tears this year from barbell bench presses. 4. Let that sink in. 4. And speaking to my orthopedic surgeon that did my shoulder procedure, he said that pec tears, he almost only sees pec tears from bench pressing. He said he's an occasional football injury, he'll see a pec tear. But every other pec tear he sees is from bench pressing. There's really nothing else that causes barbell bench pressing that causes pec tears that he sees. So just keep that in mind. That would be the exercise I'd be most fearful of. Deadlifts and bench and squats, as long as you're keeping your form tight, you should be relatively safe. If you wanted to shift to front squats where you're using less load, or maybe do lunges, you could do lunges with dumbbells so you're not loading the spine, not doing any axial loading. That would be a way to go. Dumbbell rows. I feel like dumbbells are generally safer than barbells and allow for more freedom and range of motion where it prevents injury. But, I guess the main thing is just control form, be careful. And if you have access to a gym, just go buy a damn gym membership at some place that has great equipment. Even if you got to drive a little bit, it is well worth it. At this point, I had a home gym. I would much prefer to be in the gym using the high quality equipment they have than trying to sling together a home gym. I do like the privacy of a home gym, because sometimes it's hard to get a workout in when people are stopping and talking to you all the time. But that would be my option. I would look at getting a gym membership. All right, next question I have here is from Aaron W. Aaron asks, I am 51 years old. I've had 3 shoulder surgeries and have been lifting off and on since I was 16. I'm on my first shoulder surgery, Aaron, so I can empathize. A 9 to 10 day bro split works best for me for my recovery. I'm currently doing 9 to 12 total sets per body part. How many sets would be required for maintenance, and during which phase is this best applied? I talked about this extensively. I look at volume as a knob that you can turn up and down. If your intensity is higher, let's say heavier weights, closer proximity to failure, I think that those are probably the 2 variables that would be inside of intensity that I would look at. So if you're turning the weights up really high and you're going to absolute failure, or even doing force reps or that kind of shit, you're going to need to back down the volume. You're probably going to need more time to recover. And the volume is relative to that sort of intensity that gets ratcheted up. Same thing with frequency. If intensity is turned way up, or volume gets turned way up, you're probably going to need to lower the frequency so you can actually recover from your workouts. I have seen studies that have shown anywhere from 4 all the way up to 25 sets seems to work just fine for growing. And, if you believe any of the Mike Mentzer stuff, those guys were down to 2 to 3 sets per exercise for maintenance. It really doesn't take a lot to maintain. I over the last 6 or 7 months or so, when I've been recovering from the surgery, I wasn't doing a whole lot of volume. And I'm generally a volume trainer, at least over the last 5 to 6 years. I have been. When I was younger, I did more HIIT style training. My body just can't deal with that kind of training anymore. But, I maintain a fair amount of size. I mean, I'm still 250 pounds, relatively lean, doing, unilateral movements with 3-4 sets per body part per workout, something like that. Now, I do work out twice a week. So I was probably hitting, 8-10 sets per body part, something like that per week. But, it really, I don't think it takes a whole lot to maintain. It also has to do with the question of these problems that you're having. If you're needing longer to recover, is that having to do with lifting too heavy? Does that have to do with your form? Does that have to do with proximity to failure? You can also adjust rep ranges up and use lighter weights. You can change form where you're really focusing on squeezing the muscle and getting maximal mechanical tension versus placing load on the joints. If you're having joint connective tissue issues that are causing you to have more recovery time between workouts, so that's another variable that you need to consider. But I would say, look, if you're just trying to maintain, I've thought about getting back into jiu-jitsu and practicing jiu-jitsu again. I would say I could probably get away with 3 days a week with 5-6 sets per body part. It's probably what I could get away with and maintain a relatively decent physique. I don't know that I would be competitive level bodybuilder, but I could probably hang on to a pretty decent amount of what I have doing that. But once again, it's relative, man. Listen to your body. Do what you can get away with. I would say carefully consider your intensity, carefully consider your rep range, carefully consider your form on these exercises. Adjust those to minimize the amount of stress and pain in joint and connective tissue, and try to maximize mechanical tension. That was something that I changed as I got older. I lightened my weights up, and I really focused on where I was feeling the exercise. So to speak, the kung fu of the exercise, trying to get the most out of the least, and then progressing things up. I think if you do that, you'll find that maybe you can do a little bit more than what you thought you could, or maybe recovery will be a little bit better. Those are other considerations to make. But I don't think it takes a ton of volume to maintain your physique, as long as you're using a decent amount of intensity when you do train. Just enough to maintain. Maintaining is not that hard once you have accumulated real muscle size. You will have some glycogen depletion and things like that from lowering volume. Usually when volume goes up, you'll see fuller, rounder muscles. At least that's been my experience. I know the science bros are going to say that's bullshit, but that's not what I've seen and most bodybuilders have seen. But just be intelligent about things, listen to your body, see what you can get away with. All right, next question we got here is from Stephen K. Stephen asks, "Hey, Paul, I hope you're doing well, being back in the gym." Talked about that earlier. "I have 3 kids and life gets hectic." I know that life, my friend. "I can't always meal prep, and on days when meal prep doesn't happen, order the best fast food or quick serve options in your opinion. I usually go to places like Hibachi, Chick-fil-A, Quick Way, or Panda Express and get grilled chicken and white rice." Yeah, I mean, those all work. My go-tos when I'm traveling, or, here lately I've just been lazy and not meal prepping. But I'll do things like, I like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A actually has a pretty other than, it's got a lot of sodium in it, but, you can get a grilled chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A. I get 2 of them. I think it's something, and then I'll just use one of the buns. But if you do 2 of the patties on one bun, it's like 40 grams of carbs and 60 grams of protein, something like that, ballpark, and 10, 15 grams of fat. It's not too bad. They have their grilled chicken nuggets. Chipotle is always an option, although Chipotle, they've gotten to be real assholes at Chipotle. Chipotle used to be a bodybuilding friendly option, but it seems like Chipotle, the portion sizes have just gotten smaller and smaller, and the prices have gotten higher and higher. I can literally go to Outback Steakhouse or Texas Roadhouse and get a steak, a potato, and a salad, like a good quality sirloin, like a 10-ounce sirloin, for the price of a fucking burrito bowl, a shit-ass burrito bowl at Chipotle with double chicken on it. I mean, give me a fucking break. Really? I'd much rather go to Texas Roadhouse. You could always Uber Eats some Texas Roadhouse, man, if you got one nearby, or Outback or something like that. That is another option. A steak, plain baked potato, and steamed vegetables. I mean, you can't get yourself in trouble with that. Kebabs are always a good option. At least in my area, there are plenty of Mediterranean-style restaurants, Afghan restaurants around Greek, whatever, that have kebabs and rice. I will usually get chicken because it's going to be the lowest fat option. Some of the lamb and kubide, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but some of the ground meat options are probably going to be higher fat. I would say if your protein sources when you're dining out or ordering out are tending towards being higher fat, like let's say if you're eating a ribeye or something like that, or something ground beef, something that's going to be higher fat, I would just keep the carbohydrates lower. That seems to be the safest option when you're dining out. If you're eating a higher fat protein source, just go zero carb, just do protein and veggies. That's always a safe option, especially when you're traveling. If you're doing restaurant food, those are safer options for making sure that you don't do that. And then, there's always a shitty gas station protein shake and a banana. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. I'll do that. Or, sometimes also not ideal, but if I have to stop at some place like a Subway or something like that, I'll just get the turkey breast and do mustard and no cheese or something like that. Something boring or bland like that. I'm going to get a lot of sodium, and that processed meat's probably not the greatest thing for you. It's heavy in your stomach. I would rather eat real meat, but those are some thoughts. Those are some options that you can consider. All right, next question here is from Dave S. from the School Anabolic Bodybuilding members community. Dave asks, "Hey, Paul, I'm 6'5", 232 pounds, 49 years old, and I have been in an extended weight loss phase for 6.5 months. That is a long time, bro. I'm down 43 pounds, and a recent DEXA scan put me at 19% body fat. Congratulations, dude. That's great. I'm eating around 2,000 calories a day and still losing about 1.3 pounds per week while feeling great and progressing in the gym. In your opinion, should I continue pushing or go straight into your suggested 16-week cutting cycle for non-competitors?" I would, as long as you're getting fat loss, you feel great, you're making progress in the gym. This has always been my rule of thumb. If everything's clicking and rolling, don't change a damn thing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And then once you hit the wall, then you can make adjustments. There will come a point in time where that progress slows down. There will come a point in time where things that you're doing now stop working. And then that's when you start playing the other cards in your hand. It was a metaphor I heard John Meadows use many, many years ago when he was still around and with us. And he talked about keeping all the aces and kings and all your good cards in your hand until you need them, and then don't play those cards until you get to a place where you need them, and until that time hang on to them. If you're getting fat loss, if you're making progress, why change a damn thing? I think that's a mistake I see a lot of guys make, especially bros on contest prep. They feel like if they're progressing that they need to do more. This was something that Roman Fritz told me last year on contest prep when I was getting ready for my national show and pro card win. I was getting a little anxious, and I'm like, do you think I should do this? Do you think I should do that? And he's like, are you looking better and making progress each week? I'm like, yeah. He's like, then why would you change a thing? Don't change a damn thing. Just leave everything alone. And sometimes that is the best move that you can make if you're progressing, if you're improving, if you're continuing to move in the direction that you want to go in. Just leave it alone and ride it out until you can't ride it out anymore. Say those changes for when you need them. You'll be thankful that you did, because if you put them in place now and you get stuck down the road, what are you going to do then? All right, next up here is from Joshua P., our class clown over on the School Anabolic Bodybuilding members community. Josh has a 4-part question, and I'm going to entertain it because it is kind of funny. Which Pokemon best describes your physique? I don't do Pokemon, Josh. That's past my generation. I was G.I. Joe and He-Man. Pokemon wasn't really a thing for Gen Xers. Well, which Dragon Ball Z character best describes your training style? Same deal, man. I don't know much about Dragon Ball Z. That was past my generation as well. Number 3, do you think deep tissue massage improves recovery or healing? Maybe. If at a bare minimum it feels good. I will tell you this. I went a good decade and a half without doing any body or recovery work. No massages, none of that shit. No physiotherapy, any of the active recovery stuff that you hear bodybuilders talk about all the time. And they spend way too much time on and a lot of money on. No cold plunges, no, whatever, hyperbaric chambers, none of that shit. I didn't do any of that stuff when I made the best progress in my life. Maybe if I had, there's a possibility I could have avoided shoulder surgery. Who the fuck knows? I'm a cheapskate. And it's not just even being cheap. It's I don't have time on my hands to do all that bullshit. But hey, look, if it makes you feel better and it helps, I am doing some of it now. I've been doing massages. I've been doing physical therapy since my surgery. I do see the benefit of it now. I do think it does help. I've been doing some dry needling and some other stuff I've been playing around with this year. I've got extra time on my hand since I can't train. So I've been trying some of the stuff, and I do think some of it is somewhat beneficial. And the 4th part of his question is, after your biceps and shoulder surgery, did you start using lifting wraps or straps? No, I have not. I'm such a dunderhead. Like, I see all these people come into the gym with all this equipment, belts, straps, bands, knee wraps, knee sleeves, elbow sleeves, headbands, butt plugs, whatever they use, platform shoes for squatting, all of these things. The only thing I bring with me to the gym is a bottle of water or my intra workout. I don't use any accessories. I probably should use some lifting straps. Since I've had a bicep tear, it might be smart to start doing that, but I don't wear a belt. I don't do any of that stuff. I just lift weights. I go into the gym. I keep it simple. I lift weights. I bring my phone. I bring my intra workout or a bottle of water with me. That's it. That's the only thing that comes to the gym with me. I'm very, 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 very basic in the gym. I don't know. Back in the 90s, when I first came up in the gym, you didn't see anybody bring any of that shit into the gym. Maybe a belt. Dudes would wear belts. Maybe use some chalk. But nobody used anything. I never saw anybody using any of that stuff until the 2000s. So a lot of that, the lifting equipment's a new thing. All right, next question here is from Adam T. A good old Masteron versus Primobolan question. I haven't had one of these in a while. I watched Dr. Todd Lee and Kurt Havens discussing Masteron versus Primo. They mentioned Primo's estrogen lowering effects, possibly reducing IGF-1 conversion. While Masteron may act more like a SERM, they also discussed the potential benefits of stacking them both. What are your thoughts on running a test plus Primo plus Masteron cycle versus keeping things simpler and running one compound higher? They also mention that although Masteron may not be as anabolic on a milligram per milligram basis, you can run it at very high doses with minimal side effects, which seems to compensate. What is your take on this? Look, just run whatever makes you grow. And this whole Masteron versus Primo debate now might be a moot point since you can't find Masteron or Primo anywhere. It seems like our only options at this point are testosterone, equipoise, and DECA, which is what everybody ran in the early 2000s. The golden age of steroid accessibility seems to be coming to an end with cheap Chinese steroids that were widely available and easily accessible to the bodybuilding community. That life seems to be dwindling and coming to a halt at this point now. And we're back to what it used to be, the good old days when we just took what we could get our hands on. We just called them steroids back then. We didn't debate which ones worked the best. We just took whatever the fuck we could get and lifted and ate a lot of food and hoped that we grew. Hope that the shit that we had was actually real. That's how it was. But hey, look, let's look at it. Let's go down this rabbit hole. In my personal experience, Masteron is not that great of an off-season compound. It drives me out too much. I don't find it to be particularly anabolic, and the guys that talk about getting a lot out of Masteron usually are running high doses of testosterone with it. So it's probably just the testosterone that's doing the bulk of the work. There are guys that like my Masteron and have done quite well with it. John Jewett would be an example of that. He seems to love it, and he runs it frequently. I don't know what his testosterone doses are, but I would assume they're higher. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But really, for me, it comes down to choosing which compound you tolerate the most, which compound gives you the best benefit versus side effect ratio. If something makes you feel like shit, for me, Masteron drives me out really bad. I find my joints are creaky on it. Other people say they don't get that. I don't like how it drives me out when I am in an off season. And so I save it for contest prep. I do like the aesthetic look that I get from it on contest prep. I prefer Primobolan in the off season. If I have my druthers, that seems to be the nice balance between Masteron and equipoise. Equipoise, I have found, lowers estrogen too much and raises red blood cell and hematocrit too much. For me, I prefer Primobolan, but some people hate Primobolan. They say it's terrible for them. Really, it comes down to starting with the bioidentical hormones first and foremost. The testosterone and growth hormone would be the base of a cycle, then picking the secondary compound that agrees with you the best, that you get the best results from. We really don't have a lot to choose from right now. Probably equipoise and DECA are really our only choices for an off-season at this point. Tren, if you want to go down the doubles route, is a potential possibility. If you want to pick up my cycle cheat sheet, it's $30. It's half price. I have all the possibilities broken down in a simple to easy to understand formula. You can look in construction cycles. You can pick it up. Link is in the video description below. But I would just keep things very, very simple. And yes, when we consider the milligram for milligram results, one drug may, for example, milligram for milligram, equipoise is the most anabolic out of the three that I mentioned. Primobolan, Masteron, equipoise is probably has the most potential to cause growth. But I can't run equipoise high enough to really get much of a benefit from it because it absolutely smashes my estrogen and I get hemoglobin, hematocrit, and red blood cell count through the roof. So if I can run it at half, say what I can run Primobolan, am I getting more benefit from the equipoise, or would I just been better off running Primobolan instead? Probably the Primobolan. So that's my take on it. What you can tolerate, what your blood work looks the best on, what you can sustain over a long period of time. They all cause muscle protein synthesis. They all have unique attributes that are beneficial and negative to a certain degree, and you have to weigh all those out when making your choice on what you want to use. All right, next question here is from John W. John asks, "Hey, Paul, I'm trying to understand my reaction I had to 19 Nors. I was running testosterone, growth hormone, Primobolan, and Masteron. And later, I added Tren up to 400 milligrams with no issues. But then I swapped Tren for NPP at 200 milligrams per week without changing anything else. I developed nipple sensitivity and a small gyno lump. I had to resolve this by dropping the NPP and using AI and Caber. Why would NPP cause this reaction when Tren E did not? All right, so there are multiple things to unpack here. I'm going to give people the disclosure that I always give you: do not use Caber. Just stay away from that shit. It is a dopamine agonist, and you can really fuck yourself up permanently using dopamine agonists and interfering with the dopaminergic pathway. Dopamine agonists come with the risk, the Caber, if you can look it up if you want. Dopamine agonist withdrawal syndrome can be a major, major issue. And the reason why people use dopamine agonists is to address high prolactin, which I almost never see on blood work. You shouldn't treat a problem that may or may not be there. It's not to say that high prolactin can't be an issue. It can in certain situations. I have seen high prolactin, but it's very, very uncommon. If you suspect that you have a prolactin issue, probably drop the offending compound that's causing the high prolactin and maybe get a prolactin test to see if you actually have high prolactin before you go the route of using a dopamine agonist. I wouldn't proactively use Caber to treat gyno. It's a really, 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 really poor choice. I would not do that. It's not worth the risk. It's probably not even adding anything, to be honest with you. There are other things that we need to consider as well. Now that I got that out of the way, we can talk, the other mechanisms that are at play here. Trenbolone and NPP, while they're both 19 nors, have very different mechanisms of action. Now, both are synthetic progestins and have a binding affinity with the progesterone receptor, but NPP's binding seems to be much stronger than Trenbolone's. Nandrolone also converts to estradiol, while be it at a lower level than testosterone, whereas Trenbolone does not reduce to estradiol as well. Nandrolone also seems to have some sort of mechanism where it upregulates aromatase expression from testosterone. I don't know that there's any studies out there that show it. I've looked, I haven't found it, but every goddamn time I look at somebody running Nandrolone along with testosterone and you take a look at their blood work afterwards, their estradiol is significantly higher. And so you get this situation where you have increased binding affinity with the progesterone receptor, you have increased estradiol, and then maybe there's some prolactin. Usually when prolactin is high, it's going to be in an environment where estrogen is already high as well, and then you set up this perfect storm for rapid gyno growth, for growing boobies. If your prolactin is truly that high enough that it warrants treatment with Caber, you're going to be lactating from your nipple. And I very, very, very rarely see that with guys. I mean, it does happen. It does happen on occasion. I had it happen when I ran Tren when I was in my 20s, but I was running a really fucking stupid dose of it. I don't even remember. It was pretty gnarly dose of it. And I could squeeze milk out of my nipples. This was pre-gyno surgery. And remember, since the action of the nandrolone with the progesterone receptor is more than Trenbolone, progesterone seems to enhance estrogen's gyno-causing effect when the two are combined together. So you have this perfect storm. You'll see guys that get high estrogen and have no issues with gyno. You see guys run DECA or nandrolone by itself, and the same thing, and they have no issues, but then they combine it with testosterone and have this higher rate of aromatization with higher estradiol levels, and you put the high affinity for the progesterone receptor together with they hire estradiol, and then you've got a recipe for boobies. And that's when guys run into problem. It doesn't seem to be as big of a problem with Trenbolone. But that's why NPP combined with testosterone, I would definitely never run Tren and NPP close together or side by side. That's just asking for trouble. You're doubling up on the problems. That's just a no-no along with testosterone. So that's what's going on here, man. You set yourself up. If you want a deeper dive into the stuff, I have the Science of Anabolics Eat course that I've done with Kurt Havens. He and I go into great detail about how all these mechanisms work. It is the deep dive into how cycles work. If you want to pick it up over on the website, link is in the video description below. It's like 60 hours or so of content on there. But if you want to go deep down the rabbit hole, that's where you can go do it. All right, next question here is from Joe D. What is the shelf life of GH, and should it be stored and refrigerated or frozen? All right, so I had to look this up. Now, I don't know how much you could read into this, but here are my notes on it from what I found. They said typically the shelf life on lyophilized GH, while it's dehydrated, is about 18 to 24 months from the manufacturer date. And it should be stored in refrigerated conditions, 36 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit, for optimal stability. Do not freeze it. I hear guys talk about freezing it all the time. Peptides are very fragile. Freezing peptides can ruin the amino acid chains in the peptide. They're very fragile. They're very sensitive to heat and cold, and they need to be stored in a cooler temperature, but not so cold that it's going to damage the peptide itself. I will say this: I would suspect that actual time that the peptide is still good is GH is a peptide. It's a 191 amino acid peptide. I would suspect that the shelf life is actually much longer than that. What's going to happen over time is just going to degrade in quality, and it's not going to be as effective as it gets older. So if you get some older GH laying around, it's probably not hurting anything. This is not medical advice to use it. It may not be as potent as it was once when it was fresh from the manufacturer. So just keep that in mind. All right, next question I got up here from William P. William asks, hey, Paul, with Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up, what are your nutrition strategies for this time of the year? I'm in a growth phase, but I don't want to gain unnecessary fat. What rules do you follow? Do you enjoy yourself, or do you keep your training, or you limit intake during the holidays? In the past, I've stayed dialed in during the week and enjoyed myself on the actual holiday. I actually have a video up about this, how not to eat like an asshole on the holidays. Look, dude, if you're in a reasonable place, just have one meal and enjoy yourself. What I will do, or what I used to do, now I'm not really following any sort of fucking diet, but what I used to do when I was locked in, serious about bodybuilding, I would just eat protein and vegetables only for the rest of the day. And then I would give myself one big plate at Thanksgiving with a piece of dessert and call it a day. And then I would just go back to eating regular after that. And I found that it really didn't make much of a difference if I did that. So I just looked at it as a HZ cheat meal. I just treated it like I would any other cheat meal. If you're really trying to be cautious, choosing things correctly can make a big difference. So, for example, a lot of the stuff that's get you in trouble at Thanksgiving and holiday dinners is the high-fat stuff. And to be honest with you, I don't really like the high-fat stuff that much anyway. Skip the butter on your potatoes. Stay off the gravy, which will tend to have a lot of fat in it. Just eat meat and potatoes. That's not going to be too bad for you. There'll be some butter in the potatoes, but it shouldn't be, depending on how much butter grandma puts in the potatoes, it shouldn't be too bad. So that's a consideration there. Have a reasonable piece of dessert. Don't put butter on your rolls. You see a theme here with the butter. The butter is very calorically dense and gets you in trouble. So just be cautious with that. Just be cautious with the high-fat stuff, like the high-fat, high-sugar stuff. That's the stuff that's going to make you fat. The sweet potato casserole, bullshit like that, or green bean casserole. Who the fuck likes that shit anyway? You're Satan spawn if you eat that stuff. I stay away from that shit. I basically just stick with the meat and potato stuff. That's, turkey and potatoes. I always laugh because people talk about tryptophan making them tired after Thanksgiving dinner, and you always see that on the news. Bro, we eat fucking poultry all goddamn day long. Bodybuilders aren't narcoleptic. It's not the tryptophan that's making you tired at Thanksgiving dinner. It's the 8,000 calories of pumpkin pie with whipped cream and ice cream on it. Blood glucose probably through the roof. It's all the fat and all the sugar. It's not fucking tryptophan that's making you tired at Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know why reporters, they love to talk about that. They whip that out of the closet every year. Tryptophan making you tired on Thanksgiving. No, bro, it's the 8,000 calories and your glucose is through the roof and you're a fat piece of shit. That's why you're tired. But just enjoy yourself. We're bodybuilders. If you're, look, if we're eating 6 meals a day, there's 7 days a week, that's 42 meals. If you have one off-plan meal for the week, what is one meal? I mean, what is that? 2.5% of your entire week. You're not blown unless you're on contest prep. If you're on contest prep, it's a different story. You got to keep shit buttoned up on contest prep. But if you're in your off season, just have fun, enjoy the dinner. Don't piss your mom off. My mom always gets mad at me when I don't eat certain things. So enjoy your Thanksgiving, have fun, be with your family. Don't be the jerk off bodybuilder that brings his Tupperware with him to family Thanksgiving dinner. I've been that guy. Nobody likes that guy. All right, folks, that's all I got for you on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this ranting episode of Ask Big Paul Anabolic Bodybuilding Q&A. I will see you motherfuckers next week on the next Q&A. Rock on.